Hey guys, the Rick here, bringing you another video. Today we discuss what's your favorite or best algae eating fish. Now in my opinion, there are so many awesome algae eating fish out there. If you go for a smaller type of tank, I recommend getting the auto sinkless. One of the best algae eating fish out there. Super hard working, easy to find, they're relatively cheap. I wish they were a bit hardier, but overall, they're fantastic algae eating fish. Now if you have a bigger tank, I also recommend getting the Siamese algae eater. They're one of the best algae eating fish out there in my opinion. I recommend though that you get them when they're really small. When they get to a much bigger size, they tend to stop eating algae and eat other stuff like fish food that you feed the other fish. So now let's hear what some of my friends in the fish tank community think about this topic.
This is a tough one because I have a lot of algae eaters in my tanks. I have some auto cats. They're pretty hard workers. They're nice. They will eat brown algae. They do work hard. I have Siamese algae eaters in my tank who also are hard workers, but I tend to see them resting a lot, especially at night. Right around when the lights go off and after, they're always chilling somewhere, not doing a whole lot of work. You got your bristlenose plecos. I have a few of those. I have a couple veil tail. I have some fire bristlenose, and they do some work on my wood and on the glass once in a while. They do move around quite a bit. But my favorite algae eater, which I think is very underrated and I think gets a bad rap in the aquarium hobby, is the Chinese algae eater. A lot of local fish stores, a lot of websites will say that they can get aggressive and that they will stop eating algae after they get to about 2 to 2.5 inches. But I've had them for a long time. I have not had any of these problems, and I think the Chinese algae eater is a true workhorse when it comes to eating algae. My Chinese algae eaters, they never stop. Whether the light's on, whether it's night, whether it's day, they are always moving. And they don't stick to one thing. You got your auto cats, you know, they go up and down my jungle val, or they'll stick to a big leaf of an Amazon sword for a while. My bristlenose will, you know, stay in one place on driftwood for a while. My Siamese algae eaters, although are a great algae eater, will move around pretty good. But my Chinese algae eaters they'll go up and down a whole airline tubing and then down it. Then they'll move right to the rocks. Then they'll move to all my plants, jungle val, swords, any type of plant I have, my Ludwigia, you name it. They will go take every inch of that leaf, the whole jungle val, all my rocks, my glass, airline tubing, filters, you name it. I can probably put a time-lapse video on these guys and they are non-stop. They are a workhorse. The Chinese algae eater is by far, out of all the algae eaters I have, is my favorite. They just truly, truly do work hard, and the tanks I do have them in, I don't have them in all my tanks, no algae whatsoever. Never have any problems with algae, and they will not stop working. Like I said, they'll go right from a rock to a plant, to some airline tubing, right to your glass, right to the substrate. These guys, they never stop working, and I've never had a problem with them. I know a lot of people talk about, a lot of fish forums, a lot of websites talk about how that you can get some Chinese algae eaters that can get aggressive towards other fish, or that'll even stop eating algae after they get a certain age. But I've had Chinese algae eaters for a long time. It was one of my first algae eaters that I got, and I do love those algae eaters, and I do believe that in the algae eating world, they are the true workhorse. They never stop, and I love those guys.
A great way to reduce algae in your aquarium is to introduce creatures into your aquarium that feed off the algae. So it's a great natural way to kind of control the excess buildup. The most productive algae eater that I know of in a freshwater aquarium is the amano shrimp, also called the Yamamoto shrimp, and also Cardinia multi blah 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 blah. So it's going to be right there. And see, the thing about this shrimp is it can be very long-lived. They won't reproduce in your aquarium, however, as they need salt water to actually fulfill the process. Another great small shrimp to include in this aquarium is the cherry red shrimp. Now the cherry red shrimp will reproduce and they reproduce fairly easily. They seem to love Java moss, especially in Christmas moss and things like that, to kind of run around in, and it keeps their young pretty well protected. Now, they will continuously search out not only leftover food that kind of gets dispersed along the ground, but they will also eat a tremendous amount of algae. The other algae-eating fish, if I was going to recommend one of the sucker fish, it would probably be the bristlenose pleco. That is a very productive algae eater. They will eat regular fish food and other things, but it is definitely one of the coolest looking ones. It can be raised in a number of different conditions. It's also it's a very hardy fish, but it doesn't get too big. That's another thing. If you want to get an algae eater, you want to make sure, you know, a traditional sized pleco can get enormous, whereas a bristlenose pleco rarely gets above 5 inches long. Now, it gets quite wide and it's still a kind of a big creature, so you do have to keep it in a slightly larger tank. But keep all this in mind and you'll have some great algae eating, battling creatures just waiting to help you out.
Best algae eater, in my opinion, would be the Autocinculus catfish. They are a spastic little algae eater. From sun up until sundown, they will be eating algae in your tank. They stay small and they are extremely peaceful.
My favorite algae eating fish. I've had a lot of them. I do have quite a bit of experience with them. My very first one I ever had, is I think the same one a lot of people have as their first one, is the Chinese algae eater. It does get quite large. It gets to about 6 inches long and is about ½ an inch to 3/4 inch round. So they get very large. So plan for that if you ever plan on having one. I don't like that fish anymore. I probably will never keep it again because I found that it can be quite aggressive. When I had one with my Gourami, it chased it almost constantly, so I took it out after a little while. But as far as an algae eating fish, it's a great fish. Another fish I've had is a pleco. I've had a common pleco since it was under an inch and it grew to be about 18 inches. So I had that one for about 9 years. I ended up taking it back. So plecos, the common ones, get quite large and they actually aren't that great at eating algae. I've also had other ones, the smaller species of plecos, like a rubber lip or bulldog pleco, I think they're called. They do quite good and they don't get that big. And another one I've had is the bristlenose pleco. That one does quite well at eating algae, but again, they do get quite large. They grow slower and they don't get as big. They get about 6 inches. So those are great ones. But my favorite algae eating fish is definitely the Oto. I've had probably 50 Otos in all of my tanks over the last 7 years that I've been keeping planted tanks. In my 100-gallon tank I had about 35 Otos. In this tank I have, I think, 12 Otos. So Otos do a fantastic job. They really do really good detail work. They get all of the hard to get algae. When this tank, when I first set it up, I had a really big cyanobacteria outbreak and they just destroyed it in a minute. One of the things I don't like about Otos though is that they are wild caught. As far as I know, they haven't been bred in captivity at all, so they are quite delicate fish. Before I buy them, I make sure that the place I'm getting them from has had them for at least 3 weeks. If you ask, hey, how long have you had this fish, and they say less than 3 weeks, I don't buy them.
Alright guys, it's your turn. Leave it in the comments below. What do you think is the best algae eating fish and why? And as always, rate, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.